And I think we're live.
I think so. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar.
Good morning. We're going to be doing a lot of slicing and dicing this morning we claim 10 different types of data, and I think we're going to deliver on that claim, aren't we, Robin?
We're hoping to, so you can keep check as we go along.
And the first question that we should have had a poll on is, how many of these slicing and dicing devices do you have in your home? And I wonder if anybody out there has all four, including the banana slicer.
Which we felt was probably one of those.
But actually, we have two of these in our home. And how about yourself, Robin?
Yep, I've got that apple slicer thingy.
Yes.
And a cheap knockoff of the slap chop.
Well, we have a cheap knockoff of the egg slicer. So anyway, we're going to be not slicing food this morning. If you think you're afraid you're in the wrong webinar, you aren't. There'll be no Papille pocket slicers shown today, but there may be a Weird Al reference or two along the way. But we are going to be looking at ArcGIS and how we can bring data into that platform from a wide variety of formats. My name is Dale Lutz. I'm a co-founder here at Safe Software.
And I'm Robin Rennie. I'm the FME Desktop Support Manager.
But more importantly, you're really one of our geodatabase experts.
Well, I always feel like an expert till we get to do one of these webinars, and then you realize just how, complicated that product is.
So this reminds me a little bit, if you're old like me, this looks like the Brady Bunch. Do you have that in Australia, the Brady Bunch?
We did have the Brady Bunch.
Except there was only 9 in the squares, not 16. So this is like FME squares, not Hollywood squares. But we've got Candace and Steve and Mark Ireland tuning in from, Mark is tuning in from Winnipeg or Manitoba somewhere.
Yeah, the deep south of mosquito country.
That's right. But Candace and Steve are only a few feet away from us in another one of our exciting soundproof booths here at Safe Software.
Exactly. So that's pretty much a snapshot too of your support team. So when you email your questions into support, one of those happy people will be delighted to help you.
Yes, indeed. Now, we do want to invite you to ask questions along the way to keep Candace, Steve, and Mark hopping. Actually, we have also a special guest tuned in, and that's Paul Nalos, the leader of our database team as well. So if the questions stump us, we got Paul online. Thanks for tuning in this morning, Paul. But please send us in lots of questions. I see lots of you already are taking us up on that. So that's great. Keep us all hopping. And somebody asks and says that they in fact had the apple slicer.
Well, there you go. You see it? Yeah, it was a useful tool.
Yes. So just today, I'm going to try not to spend much time on the introduction because we do have 10 different types of data to slice and dice. And so that is going to take us some time. But I will introduce a little bit about who Safe Software is for those that don't know. We're going to jump right into a series of live demos. We hardly have any slides, actually. But we're going into we're going to go basically around the clock, is what we're saying.
Exactly. We're going to be very brave and do all kinds of interesting stuff.
And do you have a potato slicer like that, Robin?
No, mine was a little bit more manual than that.
We have one from the 30s, I think, that was that is very hard to use. But anyway, and then we're going to finish up with some questions and answers at the end, where we'll just recap some of the questions that people may have asked, and then if you have others that you'd save to the end, you can hit us with them then. But don't need to wait. You can ask the questions as we go along. So just a few words about Safe Software. We've been around since 1993. We're here in beautiful Surrey, British Columbia, where I think, are in the longest stretch without rain in history.
Exactly. If it doesn't rain before midnight, we've had no rain in July, which is positively a record for us.
Yes, and which means I have to be out watering my blackberries that I'm growing manually, so I could use some rain where I live. But anyway, there we are. There's 95 of us, of which a few of them play soccer regularly, and that must be a picture of the soccer players. We have partners around the world. But there's where we're located in that office compound. You might call it almost a safe campus, perhaps we could be so bold as to say, which is located in Surrey, and literally thousands of happy customers, though not all thousands of them have ever been gathered in the same place at the same time. But that, I think, was a shot maybe from one of our user conferences, which we're going to have another one of next June. So if you want to mark that on your calendar, we'll be hosting a worldwide conference here in beautiful Vancouver, BC, where the odds are it will be raining.
Because it'll be in June.
It'll be in June, but it'll be worth coming. Mark that down. We're also going to do a world tour next April, where we'll go around to probably slightly less than 50 cities, but nonetheless, this year we did 50-ish. Next year, probably a few less. So that's a little bit about us. We make really one product called FME, which is packaged up in 3 different ways for you to use. So FME is on the desktop. That's what Robin's primarily going to be showing today, and that consists of a few parts. A viewing tool we call the Data Inspector, the workbench where really the work all happens and the rules are configured And then once you've configured them, you can run them over and over again, either from the command line or by taking those rules and pushing them up to FME Server, which is a hosted solution where you, no, sorry, not, it's on-premise solution where you purchase FME to run kind of hands-free on your own servers, and it takes action when things happen, when emails arrive, when people hit web forms, when files arrive in directories, when schedules are hit. That's what FME Server does. It takes action running those rules you made on FME Desktop for an enterprise-wide data moving solution. And FME Cloud is a brand new thing where that is the hosted thing, where we basically host for you an FME server in the Amazon cloud, and then you can just pay for that on an hourly or an annual basis. Take those rules or those transformations you made on your desktop, push them up to a server in the cloud, and then suddenly all kinds of data starts moving without you having to have your own IT department even know about it, actually. You don't have to tell them. Just your accounting department has to know. In fact, only your credit card needs to know. So if you could even pay for it personally and no one would have to know, just you and your spouse. So with that, oh, I think I have to pay attention here because I'm supposed to do this first poll. We'd like to get a sense of our audience, find out which FME, if any, you're using. And I know we may have some users out there with the data interoperability extension. That is, in fact, the same thing as FME. It's a subset with an Esri label on it. And I see we have a lot of data interop users, so I really welcome you here today. Everything Robin's showing you applies to the data interop. You just start these a little bit differently. Instead of starting up Workbench from scratch, you say new spatial ETL tool at the same spot in your menus where you'd normally make a model builder model. So we've got a pretty good voter turnout, and I will stop the poll there. And I will share those results. Not a lot of people using FME 2014 beta.
That's because we haven't really advertised it too much yet, but we're actually, for the rest of this day, we're doing a really hard push on smoke testing that beta amongst our pro services people. Right. And then we'll be starting to contact people for whom issues have been fixed in that beta and get people trying it out.
Right. It is quite a big overhaul for us. I won't get into it too much. It's worth a whole webinar by itself.
It is.
If you want to, yeah, what's your favorite thing?
Well, I was just going to say, they've redone the GUI. It looks pretty cool, and more enhancements to the data inspector. And of course, we've added complete null support into that product.
Right, so thanks for nothing. That's the first time I've used that joke on air, and it'll be used nonstop for about the next 18 months. But yes, for database people, geodatabase does nothing, nulls.
Yes.
And so we will do nulls even better when this comes. So anyway, thanks. A quarter of you data interop users. We just were talking with our friends at Esri. The data interop is actually the same. It's based on FME 2013 SP1. And so
yes, and so today's webinar we're working with FME 2013 Service Pack 2 and ArcGIS 10.2.
Yes. And so if you're on the data interop, almost everything you're seeing today would 100% come across. We are going to update in the next service pack to make it exactly the same as Robin's got here, but practically it's all the same. Now, I know if you're on this webinar, it's very likely you're using ArcGIS of some kind. So we just want to get a sense of what kind of ArcGIS you're using. Actually, bulk of you at 10.1. We found in our testing that 10.2 and 10.1, as far as FME were concerned, were the same, as far as we know.
Yeah, we couldn't find too much difference. So if you're upgrading to ArcGIS 10.2, we would recommend that you're on at least FME 2012 Service Pack 3, I think, and beyond that. But you know, we haven't found any issues at all so far.
Yes. We're going to make a press release in a couple days about SP3 of FME 2013 supporting ArcGIS 10.2, and that is true. It completely does. However, practically, you're probably fine with many of them. So I'm just going to share the results so you can see, again, the lion's share of you over on 10.1, a few early adopters on 10.2, and only a very small number that aren't using ArcGIS. If you're not using ArcGIS, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate that you're supporting us in that way, but I think you'll still find some of the stuff interesting, even if you're not using ArcGIS.
Yep, great.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you so much. So just again, to recap what FME is, it sits in the middle, and different formats and data types float around it. And so there's 23% of you that don't use FME, so thanks for tuning in. You'll get to see just how we use this tool in the middle between all these different kinds of data to transform, integrate, convert, Otherwise, share and validate. I think we're going to do all these things as we're slicing and dicing today. So you'll get to see that.
Yeah.
Actually, validating, we're not actually doing any validation really in any of our examples, but that is a common thing people do. And the way into ArcGIS is to make sure that the data that they are putting in is good.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a lot of formats. I think our most recent count is 308, but the thing is, all of you just need to use 3 different ones. The problem is each of you use a different 3, so we have to work very hard to keep on top of the universe of formats. The other part of FME, this is a little snapshot of the inside of a data flow that goes from left to right, where we're reading some LiDAR and we're outputting, I think, a DEM in this case. The blue things are what we call transformers. Robin's got some examples today. We're going to be showing a few of these in action. Scaling up by the end, we got some workspaces that have quite a few transformers in them. But really the art of FME is learning these transformers, learning the key ones, and then applying them by chaining them together in ways we never imagined that you would chain them together to solve your problems in a very productive and fast way.
Yeah, and for those of you that can't read the slide, there's things like dissolving polygons together, buffering features, clipping bits and pieces out, that sort of stuff. So all kinds of flexibility within the product.
Some folks ask, how is this different than Model Builder? The answer is this complements Model Builder very well, because in this environment, we work on a row by row or feature by feature basis. So we read one thing and then push it all the way through as far as we can. Whereas in Model Builder, you work on a whole table at a time. And so that's why, for those of you using the Data Interop extension, it's easy to make a spatial ETL tool that works feature by feature, that thing ends up then being part of a more complex model in the geoprocessing environment. So the two work together very nicely. You might say that this thing's biggest competitor is rolling up the sleeves and writing some Python code that might loop through and do something.
And we'll actually even show you a little bit of Python code today.
Yes. These two good-looking guys are both on vacation this week.
Yeah, so if you're new to FME and you actually wanted to attend our weekly webinar, you would get somebody else. But usually it's Mark and Craig, and they do a wonderful little 1-hour live intro to FME. So we often recommend customers go there. It's a chance to ask some questions, and you'll actually get somebody answering them right there and then for you. Our Getting Started page, that's a great resource that I also send people to all the time. It shows you how to get to our video demos, webinars like this, even just little sample demos, 2 minutes of video showing how to get, build a workspace or do something like that. So
right.
Lots of good resources there to get you going.
Right, because today in our webinar, we're going to basically not spend a lot of time at the base principles of FME and just jump in, moving some data in and out of ArcGIS. But if you want to, that would be tomorrow morning, and I think you said you thought Laura was doing it?
Yeah, Laura will do it, or this is a variety of people.
It'll be done.
Yeah.
It'll be done well, but it won't be those two good-looking guys.
That's right.
Okay, so formats. This is our last poll before we have poll exhaustion. So we just want to get a sense before we start working our way around the clock, as you'll see what I'm referring to in a minute. What formats do you care about? And Don will be pleased that XML, obviously the one that's swaying the vote on that first choice. I think that's been it's sort of like that election in Zimbabwe. I think that XML snuck in there. I think it's a rig.
They didn't ask us which order to put those together.
Right. I think it should have been down with cloud, for example.
Yes.
So anyway, good to see some folks doing point cloud raster. As we suspected, fewer people doing BIM in 3D, but that'll be at the top of the hour. We'll come back around to that. And so I think we'll close the poll there and show you the results. A lot of databases and non-spatial, but overwhelmingly CAD and GIS. So that's where, Robin, you're going to start there, aren't you?
I am going to start there. And we're also going to remind you at the end that we have another webinar coming up towards the end of the month, which is very specific to CAD and GIS.
Yes.
And so the date will be on one of the later slides, but that's worth keeping an eye out for too.
Right. So here's what I referred to going around the clock. And so we got our bubbles all there, and we're going to start at the top with CAD. Actually, go ahead and click, Robin. Yep. There we go. That reminds us where we are. And we're going to work our way clockwise. And hopefully, before the time is up, we'll get to BIM in 3D. That'll be the exciting conclusion. And we're going to just wind our way around this clock and look at each of these different data types.
And so also, in some respects, the workspaces get more complex the way as we go around the circle too, because
right.
some of these formats are complex to deal with. But Anyway, we hope it'll give you a good smattering of information.
We do have our token XML reference in here too, do we?
We do. Look over here. We're going to be hitting that.
We're going to sneak in a little XML.
Yeah, we had to because Don wasn't here.
If you really want to get into XML, you can look at our. We have a couple of webinars that are recorded on our webinar archive that would give you more XML than you probably know what to do with. So anyway, Here we are. Hey, that's our webinar that's showing up there, Robin.
Yep, they'll have to change that because it'll soon be over. So what I've done is we've put together some canned workspaces just to get started. And so I'll show you a first one that we'll pick up here, and we'll take a look at what's going on with this, with some of this data. So let me just zoom in a bit closer so we can see what's going on, and we'll take a look at our source data here so that we can see what we might be working with.
That looks good. So okay, we got some kind of a CAD thing there.
Yeah, so let's have a look at what our source looks like.
So you right-click on it and say Inspect, and that brings up this guy we call the Data Inspector.
Yep, and let's have a look at this data. So we just have to make sure we've got the settings correct here so that we can see whether or not there's any attributes on this data.
Right, and so you can do things in there like expand the blocks so that all your manholes will look like them or not. Oh, okay. Whoa, there's a background map, Robin.
There is. Oh, look, and there's attributes and everything, but
where in the world are we?
Says Vancouver data. What have we done here?
Right smack in the middle of Blausack.
Wherever that is.
So I think
let's just try that again.
Yes, our first planned mishap.
And it was because we didn't tell it what coordinate system we're in. And so the thing with background maps, if you want the data to show up in the right place, you need to tell it what the coordinate system is. And of course, we're in Vancouver, so that's UTM 83-10.
So the Data Inspector is part of the Data Interop as well, and you can use it. Okay, wow, that's nice. And for those that don't know, Robin, I'll just get you to show quickly on the settings in the Data Inspector where we won't fiddle with it, but as a tools, options, yes. That's where you go and set your background map, and you have to have an ArcGIS Online account. But if you have ArcGIS, which 80% of you do, you've got an account, and then you can use these wonderful maps. Just configure it there, and then all your data will be overlaid in here. And now we have this Data Inspector so we can sniff around and see what our data is like before we actually translate it.
And just another thing too, this is all in Service Pack 2, FME 2013 Service Pack 2. Some of these capabilities were not in the earlier FME 2013s. Yes. And for those of you that haven't yet experimented with the Data Inspector, because I know we've been rolling it out very slowly and people have been a little bit nervous about it, 2013 is the one to switch over. And the reason to switch over is because of this wonderful table view at the bottom here. Finally, we can see our attributes in a way easier manner than we used to be able to. And
that's right. So someone asked, is the Data Inspector only for CAD? And no, I'll just get Robin to hit the file open data set. Any format that we read, there's a pull down or you hit the ... and that's the whole smear of them can be read and displayed. And so that's the whole idea. We look at this data ahead of time, and now I'll just ask Robin to go and select one thing. If we're in select mode, yeah, get rid of that guy, and select one line.
Oops.
Well, we'll read it again for good measure. Whoa, that's the bad one. Yeah.
Let's go back. We'll go back to the right view. Sorry.
So just go and click on somebody in there. And now if you see over on the left-hand side in her feature display window there, we have all the information about that feature. So yeah, go ahead and select somebody again. So the black line there, and in particular it's AutoCAD color 7. So over on the side there I see a color 7. And Robin, what other colors do you got in play here? There's a red line. It was color 1.
And we've got some purple over here. So you can see we're picking up from the AutoCAD file. If we looked at this file in a DWG product, like an Autodesk product, it would look exactly like this without the background map. We would see these same colors. So we're interpreting that data the same way Autodesk would, and we're also bringing that information into the file so that you can actually make use of it. The other thing you'll notice with this data that we want to load into our geodatabase is that some of these line segments don't actually join up. So if I zoom right way in here to this sort of stuff here, you can see I've got some line segments here which are made up of a couple of little pieces.
Right, so they're not properly noded, or there's extra nodes.
Yes.
So if we're going to geodatabase, one of the key things is for performance, you want to try to have fewer features if you can. Yeah. And so we might try to join those babies up.
Yeah, and if we notice, if we took the time to look at our data, we'd be able to see that we've actually got street names here and a block ID and things, and we could join this data together based on the street name.
Right, if we didn't care about the addressing divisions.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's a quick look at the Data Inspector. It's got some tools there. For those that are hardcore FME fans, there is finally a ruler coming. In SP3, the ruler is back.
That's right. So that was the big measuring tool. The big thing that was missing from the data inspector was the ruler. But otherwise, it's got everything the same as what you're used to in the visualizer. So it's really time to make the plunge and switch over to the data inspector.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the input data. Now what Robin's going to do in this workspace, the first thing she does is route that into a geometry filter.
And that's because you don't know when you're looking at data whether it really is all just the one geometry. And you know the rules about geodatabase. It's very important that only one geometry goes into each layer. So we've got to filter out and make sure there isn't anything bad in there. So I'm making sure that only the lines come through into my geodatabase feature class.
And now I think, Robin, in your geodatabase, what I remember you saying that you'd done is that you have a coded domain.
I do, and actually I just forgot to put this template file in here. Once again, I was fiddling with these things late last night, and that's never a good thing to do.
So right, so what she's doing, she's got a template XML that she's going to use to initially seed her geodatabase. That'll create all the tables and things, and it's a great way to properly get all your definitions.
Yeah, and so actually what it brings in for me is 2 or 3 other feature data sets that I might be interested in. It brings in metadata that might have been defined. So basically, if you're trying to take a copy of somebody else's geodatabase or you have a standard within your company, you can make an XML document and then we can use that to generate a geodatabase based on that document.
Yes.
And so here what we're doing is we're going to actually use the attribute mapper to take those source AutoCAD colors. So you see up here my AutoCAD color, and I'm going to assign the various types of streets to it here. And I played around with this last night again and found that I could actually set them to the domain values that I know are in my geodatabase.
Right. So this is kind of an advanced idea. You can either set them to the coded values that might have been just numbers or the full-on names. And Robin has set them to the names.
I had one with the names, and then I tried it again with the values. So I played around with these coded domains.
Right.
And basically in my destination over here, I'm telling it that that particular attribute is part of a coded domain.
Right. So that's it. So what we're doing here when we run this is we'd be starting with kind of boring CAD data and making exciting ArcGIS
That's right.
tables.
So shall we be brave and run this?
Let's go ahead.
And we said live demos, so here we go. Doesn't take long to run. And then, of course, at the bottom you get a log window telling you what's going on at the time.
So we're creating, well, that's translation successful is always a happy thing.
Always a good place to start. So let's just refresh our output folder here. And so here you'll see here's my geodatabase. And again, so here are my feature data sets. We didn't talk anything about feature data sets in here. It's created my 2 streets layers, one with the, it did one way and one the other way. And so we should be able to look at that table and see our coded domain entries over here for my street catalog category.
So
it also created an empty data set for me. So there's a parks one here that doesn't have any data, but it was it had particular attributes that I wanted to use in another workspace.
Yes. So all right.
It pre-built that and also got some metadata in here for the actual geodatabase. So I'm giving a heads up here to the city of Vancouver because that's
that's pretty cool. Oh, you had done that in your template.
I'd done that all in my template,
wow,
yes. So it brings it all in for you. So it's a great way to generate a geodatabase.
So that's great. See, now the point is, if one more thing, Robin, if you click back into your workbench and scroll to the top of the log window, I just want to remind folks that ultimately all these things that Robin's doing can be run from the command line. So you could set this up to run on your desktop every night if you wanted to, or write a batch script or this sort of thing, because once you've got these rules, you can use them over and over again.
Sure. So,
now what are we going to do?
Well, everybody always asks us in these webinars, but how did you get the boxes onto the canvas? So we are just going to take some, we're going to fill up that parks data set that we've got there. So we know they want the table in a particular format, and we've got some map info data that almost matches it. So we'll just do a very quick into generating a new workspace to show you how to put the boxes down, because we've got a fairly high proportion of people that haven't actually used.
So we're moving away from CAD, so we're done our CAD for the day.
That's right, we're onto
GIS. If you don't use AutoCAD, we do support MicroStation as well, all the same things, but now Robin's going to go GIS, so we're doing map info into geodatabase. Are you using file geodatabases today?
Yep, we're just working with file geodatabases.
And you're going to pick the one that you just created, I bet.
Yep, not that one, that's
your source.
Source thing. We want this one in our output table here. Now, because I know that feature class is already out there, I can actually import the feature type definition into my workspace, because I don't know what my source looks like. I didn't go and inspect it, but I do know what I want it to look like. So I can click on this button here.
That's an important one. If you're going to ArcGIS, that's a really wise one, because now it asks you to, it's going to go import tables from that database, and you're going to pick the one you want there.
And of course, I should only have a couple in here, so I can pick that.
So because we want to do parks, I guess.
Yep.
Whoa, okay.
So if we take a look at them, you'll see that this one has got these kind of attributes on it, and this one has these kind of attributes, and some of these aren't being carried over. And,
well,
and the names
let's see when you
changed.
connect them, what's going to happen.
We should get some reds and some greens.
Okay, that's not good. So now what, is there a way to help you?
Sure. So what we can do is we can take this park ID over to that one, and we can take this park name.
Is there, like, can you right click and say auto connect? Have you tried that?
I could try that. Let me check. I can auto connect, and that'll pick up names that are almost the same. So it did most of them for me. And of course, these other ones I don't really need.
Those are all like, actually, you're golden now.
I am golden. I'm just going to get rid of these ones that we don't need, because ArcGIS or ArcObjects does all this stuff for you, so you don't need to worry about those particular attributes. So that's how I could do that, and then I have the option here to actually replace that line with an attribute copier, so that it would actually take those names here from my source and put them through to my destination, that kind of thing.
Right. So now you've got a nice transformation.
A nice clean transformation here. There's just one other thing I did find out I needed to do, is that I have a lot of park names that have null values in them, and I don't want those ones that are in my geodatabase. So I'm just going to test for them.
All this work we're going to do support nulls, and you're telling me you don't want them.
I know, it's sad, huh? But I want to be able to test for them. So I'm going to go find my park name attribute, and I'm going to check on this list here and say, if they're null, then I am not interested in them.
Okay.
And so when I click OK, that should...
So you want the ones that pass are going to come out. That's again showing this idea that individual rows come, and if Robin wanted to, she could go, let's say, name all the ones that failed that had no name. We could call them the Safe Software Park.
We could do something with them.
And then we'd have them all with names.
Yeah, I could put another transformer in here.
And then route them back, because you can cross the streams. Unlike Ghostbusters, you can't. So
yeah, so we could do. No,
I won't make you do it. I think that maybe the mayor would get mad at us if we started naming parks in Vancouver.
That's right. So if we go back and look at our geodatabase again, now we should find that we've got park data in our engineering department here, and that data should match.
Oh, wow, that must be Stanley Park up at the top.
Yeah, how about that? Looks like a jellyfish, huh?
It looks, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And so it brought it in, and it's changed the names and set up the attributes the way we want it to see.
When there's null in the washrooms place, I'm guessing that's not good.
No, but it must mean they don't know what's in whether there's a washroom in that park.
But I want to show one other thing. When Robin ran this, the arcs or the lines that connected her transformers all got numbers on them, and I think you can see them at home. That we lost, what, 15?
Yes.
So that means there was 15 parks with no name that are, I guess it's naming opportunities that are available. But anyway, these numbers can help you while you're experimenting with your data to do your work. And so I think, Robin, that must do our GIS section.
Well, it did. So now we have to move on and do our XML.
Okay.
We can't forget that. So let's just have a quick look at a workspace here where we're taking in some shapefile data.
Of bike paths. You know, there was bike paths in the news this morning in Vancouver.
When you live in Vancouver, there's bike paths in the news all the time.
I think you got to zoom in even more.
Let's go a bit closer.
Even more. There we go.
Okay. So what has happened here is that we've got some shapefile data in our source. So let's go and take a look at it. We've got some information about some bike paths. And that bike path data had got some metadata associated with it.
But no credits.
But no credits. And we want to move that metadata into our geodatabase, because people are, you know, into metadata. So, but we want to add some credits to it as we pass it through the workspace. So what we're going to do here is load the data in from our shapefile, which is done over here, because the features are easy to handle. We just go read the features and write them out again. It's the metadata that's rather more interesting. So here we use a text line reader to just read in the XML file that is the metadata that's associated with the shapefile. And then we can rename that into a reserved name called GeoDB metadata string. And so we know now that that data that's come in from that text file is actually metadata. And what we're going to do then is, this is just telling us that the type of this one feature that we're reading in from the text line is going to be handled as metadata. and then we're going to do some XML to it.
And that's the part that the XML fans love so much.
That's right. And so what we are doing here is we have an XML updater. And that updater allows us to do all kinds of things on our metadata that's coming in. So I have this string of metadata that I've read from my shapefile, and I can replace it, or I could replace part of the contents, or I could delete bits and pieces. But in my case here, the credit field wasn't in, there was no information in it. So I need to insert it as a next sibling because it's down at a fairly low level in that metadata. So the tricky part with all of this, those of you that are familiar with XML will know a bit more about that, was that I had to find the path, where that path is in the metadata, and I was able to identify that here in my XML path.
Yep.
I told it what I'm going to replace it with is an XML query, and here is the value that I was going to assign to that metadata. So I'm going to put in a little bit of a credit here saying that I put that
right,
XML.
And that ID credit is a special tag that's known by ArcGIS as metadata stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we can, and then the result that comes out the other end is a brand new GeoDB metadata string.
Which is a complete XML document in one attribute. So basically you're reading in an old one, fiddling with it a little bit, and now you've got it, and you can just send it out to the writer at the same time
as I send all the features in. So let's just give this one a little quick run. And we can go back over to our geodatabase and take a look and refresh it. And I think I put these ones in the engineering department again. Those of you, we are putting all these feature classes into feature data sets, and we are doing that on the writers as well.
How can you have to show us how we do that?
Yeah, I should. And so here you'll see that credit has been updated to say it was
well done, Robin. Did you add a few new bike paths at the same time? You're a cyclist. I
am a cyclist, but I don't live in the city of Vancouver, so where I want the bike paths is not where they're putting them.
Okay. So how do you do that feature data set business?
I'm doing that on the writers. I'm setting that feature data set here in the format parameters on each one of my writers.
Yes, and that's been available at least in FME 2013 or maybe earlier.
It's been around actually for a long time. Okay. What we have changed in FME 2013 is that you can actually read that information in. And so we actually we carry it through on all our source features, which means that you don't have to worry. Well, you don't have to worry about them so much because it will automatically write to the feature data set. But some people haven't wanted that to happen.
Right. So that's more of an advanced ArcGIS thing, but these are advanced ArcGIS users on the line, so it's good to point it out. So that covers off our XML. Let's look back to our slides.
So where are we?
We've done our CAD. We've done some GIS, both shape files and map info files, 2 of the hundreds of GIS formats. We did a little taster of XML. We could do more hardcore XML where we'd read something like AIXM or GML and put that into a geodatabase, but we did a little more practical thing for many people, and that was fiddling with metadata.
Yeah, because really when you're working with formats like GML, it's not terribly complicated. You read to GML, write to geodatabase. So, there's nothing exciting about that.
There's no slicing, there's no dicing. Okay, so you're going to go over to some databases now.
Sure. So we're going to go look at pulling some data in from some databases. So what have we got for the next example? So here I have some spatial data sitting, I've got spatial and non-spatial data sitting out in a PostGIS database. So
let's look at, if you look over in the top left of Robin's thing, I can see she's got a PostGIS and a Postgres reader there. So there must be some that's spatial and some that's non-spatial.
That's right, because I couldn't read the spatial data using the Postgres reader, and I didn't really want to mess with the format. So I've got 2 readers here pointing to one of my machines, and they've each got a feature class on them. One has postal address kind of information, and the other one is some spatial data just showing address point information. And so when they asked me to load it into the database, I needed to pull the attributes from the 2 different places. So if we take a look here, you can see the list of attributes on this was quite long. I didn't want all of them. Okay. I just wanted the ones that were designed here for this destination table here.
Yeah.
So the way to do it was with a feature merger. I merged the 2 fields together, and I have an address ID that's common between the 2 of them. So I pull them over, and I'm only pulling over attributes because I don't want to touch the geometry that's on that source spatial table.
The source was the actual points. I guess we got this
idea
called a requester and a supplier.
That's right.
The requester has geometry. The supplier is going to give more attributes in.
That's
so we're basically bringing those together. quite often the feature merger is used when there's wildly different input types. Here they're sort of cousin input types. One's from Postgres, one's from PostGIS.
Yeah, but they could have been from anywhere.
Exactly. So you brought them together.
And then we have to do things like we've got to fiddle with the attributes. PostGIS, of course, or Postgres is famous for its lowercase attributes. Geodatabase, we wanted to make them a little bit more user-friendly.
West Coast naming.
That's right. So we sort of camel-cased them all. That's the term for when the capital letters are in the middle there. And then we had to create a few extra attributes. So I wanted to tell it that the editor that had done this data load was the webinar.
Okay, yeah.
And then we were going to timestamp them. So we wanted to timestamp the last update date with a year, month, day value.
To prove that we were actually doing this live. Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
are you actually going to do this live?
Sure, we can do this one live. Now, the funny, interesting thing with this is we have an address ID field here, which we really wanted to have an attribute index on it, right?
Yes.
And we don't have a way on our writer to tell it that this address ID should be...
And we're doing this to shame Paul into adding this? See, I'll just show the folks at home. On some of the databases, there would be a thing on that right in here that would say you can make an index. But we can't do it yet on Geodatabase, and I'm sure top people are working on it right now.
That's right. But what we can
Until
do...
then...
This
one's for Bruce Harold, our good friend from Esri. He'll love this one.
Yep, is that we can actually use some Python code here. So once the workspace has run... And
finished and completed.
Then it will run this shutdown Python script, which will go and add an index to that particular field, my address ID field, on my geodatabase table. And so basically what I did here, it's so easy to do this. I went into ArcGIS, I found the add index, the add attribute index tool. I went into the help. I copied and pasted the little Python script, changed my location of my workspace and my table, and lo and behold, it all just ran for me. So
for those that are curious, there'd even be a way that this could be taken from whatever your output was. I think there's a syntax for that. I don't remember. It's like dollars FME macro something or another.
Yeah.
So it would automatically adapt if you change the name of your output.
Yeah.
But that's the idea. A little tiny script that's going to make us our index afterwards until we get that added. So
let's just go and do that.
So you're running this.
Sure. Why not? We've had good luck so far.
Okay.
And let's go
cooking right along. Yep. That's exciting watching a log file roll by.
It is. And so this
Look at all those transactions committing. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yes. Well, the fun part is that at the bottom should be my little Python, so my FME Python, so it went and did that little step there.
It's done.
And so if I go and refresh my geodatabase again.
Well, we're building this up from scratch, Robin.
I know, aren't we clever? We were a bit nervous about doing this, and we thought
during the dress rehearsal we didn't do this, so Robin is brave.
So if we take a look at our data here. And
wow, okay, that's a lot of address points.
And if we look at our properties, we can see that we've got the index on our address ID.
Wow. So the Python worked, Bruce is happy, and Paul is shamed.
Oh, Paul does wonderful stuff for us.
Paul, I'm just teasing you. You do great stuff. We'll get to the index one day.
Yeah. So now the other thing that we can do now that we've, sorry, mental blank here. So what we can do is that we can actually update this database now.
Oh, wow,
so
okay.
Because we've got a nice index on our data, let me just...
so watch what Robin has a thing there. She's using bookmarks in FME Workbench, and now she's going to just say disable them all, which puts them to sleep, basically. They're dormant. And here's a dormant one that was lying there, and now she's going to enable it all. And now I guess you're going to read from a CSV file. Can we take a peek at that first?
Sure.
No, don't forget.
I know. For CSV, you always have to go into the parameters to make sure that you figure out whether or not your file has field names. So down here in the bottom, you can see a bit of a display. It's not a very big display on my screen here, but you can see that my field names are actually on the first line of my data. And so if I click in here, it makes the data more meaningful.
Got it.
New also in FME 2013 Service Pack 2 is the ability to tell it what the different data types are. So down here I can do things like say whether or not this field is a char field or a number field or a text field or whatever. But also you can tell it whether it's an XY coordinate field. So you can actually turn CSV records into point features right from within the reader by specifying your X and Y columns. And this is brand new in Service Pack 2, and it's just fantastic. You don't need that 2D point replacer anymore. You can just do it right from within the parameters of your CSV reader. Oops, I needed to keep that, didn't I? Because we were going to look at this data, see what it had in it.
Let's take a peek. So Here we go.
So we've got a bunch of address again. We've got that address ID that matches the data that we've just loaded. And we had a bunch of statuses which I've gone and modified and said that they're now under review and that my last editor is now me. And so if we look at my workspace again, I have done another timestamp so that that timestamp will change. I think I actually again had to use the attribute renamer, and it's quite common when you're working with databases to have to do a lot of attribute handling, working with the attributes to get them the way you want them. So we give this one a go. This time I'm just going to close down ArcCatalog because I touched that table field, and you just never know what it's going to do.
It might be locked. So count to 2, 1, 2, and then off she goes. And now she's updating it right into, and lots of customers use FME to do updates.
Yes, and I forgot this was the critical part, was that we've told it whether we're doing an update and where we're doing the update. So where the address IDs are equal on the two features. So that was that's the important part of that little workspace. And if we go back into our ArcCatalog, and we won't even need to refresh this because this is now new.
It's fresh.
Do a preview and then look at our table. We should see that the very first couple of these have been modified.
Oh, by Robin. You're the guilty party there.
That's right. So we've got a new timestamp.
It's a good way for us to tell how we're doing on the webinar. We have 20 minutes left.
Great.
So are we at the bottom of the hour? Hey, one last thing. If we just go back to that workspace, some of the folks asked a couple questions. Instead of the feature merge that's going on at the top when we're bringing data together, what are other ways you can merge streams? And somebody asked if there's spatial things. If you just go ahead and type the word spatial out here, there's something called a spatial relator, right? So that would be one way that you could join areas to points. There's also some overlays. If you type the word overlay, there's things that, all these different ways of joining things spatially. And so that's one little thing there. Also, someone asked, what if we wanted to just type a SQL statement to do a join? If you type SQL creator out here, or just,
well,
you can do that too.
We've got a couple of different spots, lots of different spots.
If you type SQL creator, hit enter on that. This lets you go out to a database and write an arbitrarily complicated SQL statement that could involve joins and everything else, and off you'd go.
Yeah, so I could have picked up my SQL statement here and typed it away.
And done a join there. So that's just a few mop-up things there, and so let's go back to our slides and see where we are. Okay, we're on the home stretch. Oh, cloud. We're at, okay, so here we're going to try.
Now, this isn't point cloud data. This is data out in the cloud. So we were talking about things like Google Fusion tables. In fact, this particular example, we're going out to read our Salesforce database to take a look at it and do something with the data. And we're actually going to use the ArcGIS Online geocoder, which is a custom transformer that we put together that uses our ArcGIS Online account to geocode the data that's coming from our Salesforce.
And I think Bruce will be happy to see that because I think he does work with the geocoder as well.
Yeah, so you can see here we have a salesforce.com, so we're going out to a particular website and using a security token that's been put together for us to get at that particular data.
Don't look at that security token, folks at home. Actually, for those that don't know, Salesforce is an online CRM, customer relationship management system that we use at SAFE. Don't worry if you're a customer of ours. This is the test one. It's all fake data in there. And here's our ArcGIS ArcGIS Online batch geocoder, and using our ArcGIS account along with some information about that. Are you going to run this live?
Sure, we'll run this one live too. So what it's doing is I'm going to geocode based on the street, the city, and the postal code.
Yeah.
And then in that test data, we had a couple of bad ones, so I needed to just get rid of some bad data here.
Yeah.
And then we do things, because it's the geocoder, we have to tell it what the coordinate system was that those points are now going to be in.
Yes.
And so we've assigned them a coordinate system of lat long 84.
And you've mopped up the data.
And then once again, you have to mop up the data to make sure it fits with what you want in your geodatabase.
Okay.
I think I removed, there was a ton of bogus stuff there, so I just removed it all and passed it through to my geodatabase.
Let's give it a go.
Now the thing is, my geodatabase is in UTM, remember?
Oh.
So what will happen here is that I have told that on my destination here that the coordinate system of the geodatabase is UTM, and so this data will all be reprojected just as it's being written, because it'll have to go from that long into UTM.
Okay. And so off we go.
Bravely
So we're reading from Salesforce out in California somewhere. We're geocoding somewhere else, who knows where, in ArcGIS Online. And then we're writing it right here on our own computer.
Yep. And all of that's happening relatively quickly. and we can go and have a look in our geodatabase when that point of interest table shows up. So let's refresh this again, and I think I put it here in my city.
Yes.
And so we've got half a dozen customers that are sitting in Vancouver, and we have some information about them here. So not anything terribly interesting, just city data.
But this proves the point that we can go out to a cloud service that wasn't spatial at all and use another cloud service, thanks ArcGIS Online, to do stuff. You know, Robin, I'd like to play around with ArcGIS Online some more. What else can we do?
Well, we've got an ArcGIS service area calculator here. So I'm just not going to touch that.
Isn't that convenient? It was just hidden down there. That's basically the drive time polygons thing. And if you just type, if any of you have FME, just type ArcGIS service area and it'll pop that thing down because it's part of the FME store if you're using FME 2013.
That's right. So I'll just show you how that works. So if you take a look, you'll see them. Because I've downloaded them, they've all come in with this green thing, but they would be, they'd have a little arrow on them saying that they were from the store. And you can also find them over here in our FME store.
Yes. So this one is going to, I guess we can say to ArcGIS Online, tell me if I was 5 minutes away, if I wanted to stop by a customer, what kind of area does that look like?
That's
so let's give that a spin. And while she's doing it, we'll hit the ... there to show the folks. Just hit the ... That'll show them that we're using a little trick because we're grouping in this visualizer is going to pop up. We're not putting this to geodatabase this time. We're just going to pop it up and take a peek. That's grouping by facility ID. So now we're going to see the points. Okay, there we are. And so if we turn them all off and
we'll
just pick a customer.
Back on, yeah.
So that's the distance. That's 5 minutes away. I think that's optimistic in 5 minutes, in my opinion.
Certainly during
maybe
rush hour,
this time of day it might be fine. But
so this is the kind of information you can get. So for each one of those facilities, it figures out how long it would take, how far away you could be in 5 minutes to get to them.
Yes, and so that's just another great ArcGIS Online service which you could use in an FME workflow and store that information anywhere. But wait, Robin, I think there's more.
I think there might be more. So let's go just down a little bit further into this workspace.
So we're showing one more service just for fun. There we go. Robin clicked on the arrow above and then click below and disable the other ones. Go ahead and run this while we're talking through it. This one is what I would think needs to be renamed as the geo-enricher. And hit the ... on this. We can go out to ArcGIS Online and pull a bunch of interesting things. We're going to pull age and demographics, and we're in Canada, so that's what we're going to have there. But we have other stuff that could be pulled. So we can get at all this stuff. I know there's someone online from Turkey, so I saw there was Turkish data. And so here we are. This tells us the demographics around each one of these customers, and we can see the sizes of different populations.
Now they're a bit hard to pick up on the back of that background map. I'm just going to turn that off. So this particular facility here, this is the total population around that. It must be something to do with
census zones
or something.
And we can tell the sort of differences by the number of men and women at each of these places, which presumably, if you're looking for a place to live, that might guide your choice.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so that was the kind of data you could get from the ArcGIS Online service.
Just a tiny sampling. There's a whole pile of information there. We wanted to just give you a taste of that.
Yeah.
So let's move around the clock. I think we better...
Keep it going here.
What are we up to next?
Oh, that was cloud. So now we're going to do point cloud. So we're going to go look at point clouds and rasters.
All right, we got 12 minutes to get around to the top of the clock.
Okay, so this one I actually wasn't going to do the load because that did take a little bit longer. And so we were going to do two things in this workspace. One was take some ECW files and load them into a geodatabase. So this would be the kind of thing you might do. Very easy to set up. I've got a whole lot of ECW files here I'm reading, so that those are the names of them.
Yes, for folks that didn't know. Folks that didn't know, go ahead, Robin. You can read all of these in one shot in FME, and that's what she's done there. You can also say start at ECW, these kinds of things. We'll read all the data that you want.
And the problem with these was that geodatabase wasn't happy with table names that started with 02-03. So what I ended up having to do was just concatenate a string into the front of them so that I could
photo something.
Call them something useful.
Now, these were just loading them in as individual rasters. We are working on eventually being able to do raster mosaics, but that's not an FME today.
No, and so they came in looking like this. So
okay, this is your backup database that has the answers from a previous run.
That's right. Well, these took a little, I just didn't want
to grind imagery live is a little much for us.
And I kind of knew we might be running out of time.
Yeah.
So we've loaded them into this database.
Can you look at them?
We could look at them, yep. So this is what they look like. So what we are going to do next...
I think that's Rec Beach. We better get that off there. This is a family show. Okay, good.
We're going to read those ECW files from that backup here. So I've got an ECW, I've got a geodatabase raster reader, and then I have some point cloud data that's for a similar area. And so what we're going to do is layer the point cloud data over the top of the ECW, over the rasters, over the top of the point clouds, take the colors off the rasters and put it onto the point cloud and create an LAS file that's suitable for looking at in ArcGIS.
Right, we're not only translating, you're going to have to run this one?
Yep, we can run it while we talk about it.
So not only are we reading from a ArcGIS supported point cloud format, E57, it also is a point cloud that didn't have any color, and we're going to steal color by reading the rasters out of ArcGIS and combining them in this little thing, and also writing out a last D. That's what Robin's highlighting there, so that it should be ready to go when she goes back to ArcGIS.
And what's more, it should even be in our proper geodatabase. So let's just refresh this, and here's our last D file.
Awesome.
So we can look at it here. I was supposed to be starting up ArcScene while all that was going on, actually. And we can pull it into ArcScene and take a look at it.
Yes. Right, we can flip it to 3D and
here, and we can see that we've ended up with 3D data.
We did scale it a bit vertically, just because that part of Vancouver is modestly not.
I know, isn't that? It seems like when you're in Vancouver, you shouldn't need to be scaling your contours, but
where you live, you don't have to.
No, and so there's an option here on the last toolbar to turn the RBG values, and so when we do that, we can see that we've got the color off the orthophoto onto
spin it around and everything.
And we can spin it around and take a look at it.
So there we just colorized that and made it ready for ArcGIS. Point clouds raster, check. So we're on to the last of our, we're bringing it around to the top of the hour. Go ahead and click. We're going to do 3D and BIM all in one shot. Click it again, please. Because what we have, this is something we're working on at Safe Labs pretty hard right now, and that is a way to fully capture all the information from Revit. For those that don't know, Revit is a tool made by Autodesk that is widely used for designing buildings. And so this is actually a customer building of some kind, and it had a lot of detail in it. You can see in the other scene that we have down there, you can see interior walls, and all these Revit guys love placing toilets and plumbing fixtures. Every example always involves plumbing, and this is no exception. So we have this, and we want to take this and put it into ArcGIS. And so we're working on a tool that's going to dump that from Revit into a nice package. We aren't quite done yet, but we just about are. So we'll go ahead and open this thing. And here's the workspace that would read what we got out of our Revit. With any luck, maybe we'll shut down ArcScene. Or do you use ArcScene?
Well,
you need ArcScene.
No, actually, you know what? We don't need. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, you do need ArcScene. This is a more complicated one. Dimitri did it. When you're talking about building information models in 3D, it does get more complex. I don't think we'll walk through this much, but you want to just go ahead and run it? Is that what you're going to do?
Sure, we can run it. Yep. And it actually does two things. One, it takes just that external information off the Revit diagram. So it takes the walls, the roof, and the doors and windows. And so you can see here it's only selected a very small subset of feature types. So those are the things that it's interested in.
Yes.
And it's passing those through to our geodatabase. And basically all it's doing here, it looks very complex, but when we really zoom in closer, you can see all it's really doing is adding color to things. So it's adding blue for the windows and red for the roof and brown for the walls, that kind of thing.
Yes. So we're also cleaning up the doors and windows to not have so much detail in them. Part of the game when you're going from building information model into something like ArcGIS is you just don't need so much stuff.
That's right.
And so the other thing we're doing is producing an Excel spreadsheet that has the kind of bill of materials we need to order.
Exactly. So we're actually using our new Excel writer here and doing things like, it's actually very interesting. So we've got user attributes here with price per unit and total per fixture. And this is all, again, brand new in Service Pack 2 of FME 2013, where we can actually color the cells. So when that Excel spreadsheet is being written out, that cell, whichever one I clicked on, will be colored red. And this next cell here should be colored green. And so this will build up an Excel spreadsheet showing the article that you want to buy, the amount, and the price.
And those article things were pulled from the raw Revit dump. So we are, under the covers, we're basically getting both geometry and raw stuff. Okay, so what's going to happen here?
Refresh
You ran it.
Yep, we ran it, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we refresh it. We should have some building information in here, so we can take a look at it.
Flip it to 3D.
We can look at it 3D here.
Oh, that's a table there.
Yeah, we want to do
3D.
Sorry, 3D.
There we go.
Too many buttons.
Here we go. That's pretty exciting.
Yep.
A bunch
and
of
so
windows.
we could also do. Let me just get rid of this guy. We want a new one.
Yeah. Good. Nope. All right. So we'll drag.
We can drag the whole building over.
No, that's the whole thing. Ooh, it's all together in one thing. So we got our shell there. Look underneath. Hey, we chucked out all the detail. So that makes the GIS people happy. And one last thing. Let's open up that Excel.
Yep. Let's have a look at it. We can.
Actually, let's show the folks one other trick. Go back to the workbench, and on the Excel, if we right-click and say Open Containing Folder. There we go. That finds it for us. Double-click it. And here we go. A nice spreadsheet with
colored
double
units.
flush. That must have to do with the toilets.
Yep, that's right. That's one of those.
As opposed to single flush.
That's one of those water efficient ones which you should be all using these days, right? Especially when you haven't had rain for a month. So.
Yes. Okay. So.
And our examples have included. You had a punchline, remember?
Yes, we have everything, including the kitchen sink here today. I think that ends our stuff.
Exactly. So I think we've been right around the circle with our examples here.
So thanks so much for that madcap tour of slicing and dicing. A couple things, if you liked what you saw today, we'll be back a couple more times before the summer's over, or you can go online and watch all of our archive. That makes for great summer viewing to tune into previous webinars that cover many of these things in more detail. We've done a survey. We've sliced and diced 10 different data types in the last hour. Obviously, we're skimming along the surface. You can go into those things for more depth, or better yet, take advantage of the things on the next slide, which are our free online training, where we go in the same manner as this. It goes for like 2 4-hour sessions or so in back-to-back. We give you an online machine on Amazon where you have FME installed. You connect to that. You can run it. All the data's there. And then people like Robin walk you through the details of how to use FME. And you've done these courses on things, like there's a general intro one, but also on ArcGIS.
Yeah, we do an ArcGIS. Well, some of them are advanced courses, so we expect that you'll have done some desktop training first. So we do a spatial databases course. We do we've got a Raster course. We have a KML course, Esri, an Esri focused course, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yes.
And so take a look at our training webpage and sign up for some of those courses. The online ones are great, just 4 hours for 2 mornings. It's a really good overview.
Yes. So here's some more links. You can follow us on Twitter. Our blog is about to come back to life in a newly reinvigorated way, so watch for that in the next few weeks. And we always are cranking out stuff on YouTube as well. So I think we'll just, we got a whole, look at that, Robin, we have 3 whole minutes.
Good job.
So we will definitely get you out of here on time. So I'm just going to take a look. I don't know if the questioners from next door have any things particularly they'd like us to highlight. But some people asking about are these scripts going to be made available to folks, and they will. So we'll be sending out a follow-up email with links to all this stuff so you can walk through this yourself.
Except for our Esri Online account information.
Yes, we will take that out and we'll put instead Bruce Harold's information.
Exactly.
So anyhow, but all of you will be getting ArcGIS Online accounts, so that's pretty exciting because you'll be able to use all these services.
Yeah.
Some people asked about the reprojection. If you just want to type the word Esri reprojector down, FME includes a reprojection engine, but you can also use the Esri one if you would like, and then that gets you the Esri specific things if you want exactly their projection mechanisms to be used.
Yeah.
And when Robin did the other one, the one reprojection, it would have been using the built-in FME one.
Exactly, yeah. So there's actually a bunch of reprojectors there. We have the CS map one is the one that we recommend you all use now. So this allows you to do reprojection along with datum transformations at the same time. So that there's a once you've picked your 2 source and destination, we decide whether you're going to need a transformation, and we'll offer you a box to fill in there. So that's new. And the Esri reprojector will only show up if you have ArcGIS installed on the machine.
And now, Robin, can you just select both those reprojectors and then make a bookmark for them?
Sure.
Because somebody asked, how do you make a bookmark?
Yeah, so that I find bookmarks really useful, and so to make a bookmark, you select the pieces that you want to have in it, and you can click on the insert button up here and insert a bookmark, and it will put the box around and let you have a title on it. And the nice thing about bookmarks is that they also show up here in your navigator pane. So under this bookmarks tab here, you can say, I want to go to the Light 3D model, and it will find that bookmark and center your screen on it.
Preparing the
windows or going back up to my reprojecting one. And so this is why we use bookmarks. And then, as you notice, the ability to be able to disable or enable all the pieces of a bookmark.
Right. So I think that we'll call it there, because I know people have stuff to do today. We've got to go through. And congratulations, Robin. Not one glitch in any of the demos.
I know, amazing, huh?
It was a wonderful start to the day here. I hope that's the way the testing of FME 2014 goes the rest of the day. In the same way, not one glitch found at all. So anyway, on behalf of all of us at Save Software, the wonderful team here that works so hard day in and day out, I really appreciate all their efforts. On behalf of you, our users, and really that's what gets us into work each day, is to try to make your lives easier, to take away the data headaches that you may be experiencing, and make moving data a very tiny part of your job, so you can focus on all the other exciting things, in this case, that you might want to do with ArcGIS. So on behalf of all of us at SAFE, this is Dale Lutz saying thank you so much for tuning in.
And all the best for the rest of the day.
That's right.